person beside you.
Good evening. My name is Theodis Pace. I'm the president of the Kankakee County branch of the NAACP, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2nd Ward and the 6th Ward Aldermanic Candidate Forum today with our candidates, Mr. Dave Barron of the 2nd Ward, Ms. Adams of the 6th Ward, and along with Mrs. Johnson representing running the Democratic Party in the 6th Ward. Our panelists for the evening is Mr. Chris Breach of the Daily Journal, Mr. Jess Gathern, former Alderman of the 1st Ward and current school board member and 2nd Vice President of the NAACP, and Ms. Yana Smith as a panelist, and our timer for the evening is the one and only Ms. Charlene Eve. I want to thank Mr. Steve Bertrand and his staff for, again, in putting on this forum, along with the members of the NAACP Political Action Committee. We're going to start with the opening statement of Mr. Dave Barron, followed by Ms. Ayana Yaquantis Adams, and Ms. Kelly Johnson. Mr. Barron.
Great, thank you.
3-minute statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here tonight, and a big thank you to the NAACP for sponsoring this forum. This is one of the institutions of local elections. You come before this group and you answer questions that you don't know what they are. It's part of our process, and it's one that makes our democracy stronger. I'm really happy to be a part of it. My name is Dave Barron. I'm an attorney here in Kankakee. I was born and raised in Kankakee, and then my wife and I moved back a few years ago to raise a family. He's 1 year old, and we live in the 2nd Ward. I am running for 2nd Ward Alderman. I want to start by mentioning a date. June 17th, 1982. This was a date that would forever change things here in Kankakee County. It's the day that the Roper Corporation closed. 2,800 jobs up in smoke instantly. And that led to other negative impacts here in Kankakee. About a decade later, we had dozens of murders every year. We had businesses leaving our downtown in droves. For many people, they saw that and they left. They left Kankakee. That was a different aspect. Is this not on? Okay. Sure. So that Kankakee was, for many people, that date was the end of Kankakee as they knew it. A Kankakee of the mid-20th century, when Schuyler Avenue was filled with department stores, retails, restaurants, hotels. That Kankakee, I never knew. In 1982, I wasn't born yet. For many people who are my age, we have to look at pictures to think about that old Kankakee. That's all it is, an image. We came of age at a time when Kankakee was clawing back, and we've done a good job. We're not there yet, but we've done a decent job, and we've got more places to go. People like me, who are under the age of 40, do not have a voice currently on the city council. More than almost 60% of the residents of the city of Kankakee are under the age of 40, and not one of them is on the city council. I want to run to be a fresh perspective. I want to run to be able to talk about new ideas, the new economy, new trends, new economic developments that we can bring to the table. I'm running to provide that perspective. And while we're looking at dealing with some of these serious issues that are facing Kankakee, and we've got them, a pension that is just escalating out of control, murders, shootings on an almost daily basis, and we've seen it tear through our community most recently, we also have to face down another problem, and that's the negative perception that so many people have. Everything that we want to do, we're fighting against that as well. We have to come together. That's the only way that we're going to be able to push back on the naysayers, is a united voice. People from every ward, every sector of every ward, every race, every nationality, every creed. If we have a united voice, we will be able to achieve strong neighborhoods and safe streets. It's something that I hope to do as Alderman, and I hope to be able to talk about some of the ideas that I've put on my platform. And for those of you playing at home, you can check them out at barronforkankakee.com right now. But I hope we'll be able to talk about those in a little more detail. So thank you again for having me here tonight.
Mr. Yaquantis Smith Adams. Ms. Adams. I'm sorry, Ms. Adams.
That's Yaquantis.
Yaquantis Adams.
Adams.
Got you.
Good evening, everyone.
First, I would like to say thank you for the NAACP for hosting this forum and the invite as well, and also the Kankakee Public Library for having us at this engaging event. My name is Yaquantis Adams. I am a lifelong resident of Kankakee. I went to Kankakee School, and I've raised my family, 3 children in the 6th Ward. I bought my first house in the 6th Ward on Maple Street when I was 20 years old. We bought our second house on Codwich, where we're residing now, for the last 18 years in the 6th Ward. And I've seen some things change since I've been in that area and neighborhood. I've seen some things depreciate as well. My background, I have a social work background, and I have a background in criminal justice. I am a state employee. I have been with the state for 22 years, and I am a resource officer at the Kankakee County Department of Human Services. I provide resources and services to those of us that are in need, where it is, if I'm making connections for mental health, for health care services, or for food and family services. Our community has declined in the resources that we have. A lot of the times, we don't know where we need to go to receive those, or it stops. You know, if I'm having a conversation with someone, the communication stops and does not further, so it's not beneficial to us. I'm an advocate. I've always been a very strong-minded person, and I am truly dedicated to changing the narrative and changing the perspective of Kankakee. I can agree with Alderman Barron about changing the negative connotation of Kankakee. You know, also many times we hear, oh, Kankakee, but this is the nucleus of Illinois. It's not Chicago. Kankakee, we have had people move away and return back to the city and prosper as well, you know. So there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of money, and there's a lot of opportunity in this town. And I would like to be the alderman and the voice for advocacy in not only my area, but across the wards and across parties. I don't see political parties as a form of division. We all need to connect because we all need each other. Especially since this COVID-19, we have all experienced some losses, be it financial, economical, and I just want to be able to make the change and be the voice.
Thank you, Ms. Yaquantis Adams. Mrs. Johnson.
I want to say thank you, Mr. Pace and the NAACP for having us tonight, and the library for providing this opportunity. My name is Kelly Johnson, and I am running for the Alderwoman of the 6th Ward of Kankakee. My family and I have called the 6th Ward home for almost 10 years now. I have been involved in our community during this time as a member of the Riverview Historic Board, a T-ball coach for the JCs, and currently serving as on the Citizens Advisory Board for the Economic Community Development Agency. I have also volunteered during the holiday house walk, along with supporting the local bike race and the yearly 5K in the 6th Ward in the Riverview area. Along with my family, I helped to raise funds for the St. Baldrick's Foundation to support childhood cancer research. I have also attended numerous RNO, or Riverside Neighborhood Organization meetings. It has been during these meetings that important topics have been discussed, such as public safety, trash pickup, and the road and sidewalk repairs of the 6th Ward. A little bit of background on myself. I was born in Kankakee, raised in Bourbonnais. I am a graduate of Olivet Nazarene University with my associate's degree and my bachelor's in business. My husband and I really enjoy living in the 6th Ward of the city, and actually the whole city of Kankakee. We enjoy what it has to offer, from the parks and the playgrounds to the marina close to us, the river access, and the diversity of all of our neighborhoods. I am, however, concerned with the direction which the city seems to currently be heading. As a parent, I share many concerns with the citizens as I'm walking the neighborhood, going door to door, meeting neighbors and constituents. Concerns that they have are the same as mine. Public safety is surely a top priority right now, along with our property taxes, our tax dollar allocations and where we're spending those funds, and the economic development or the jobs in the city. Kankakee is my home. My family and I have a vested future in Kankakee and the community as a whole. I will be an independent voice for Kankakee. I am not a politician. This is not something that I ever imagined doing. I am a concerned citizen who will work for what is best for the citizens of Kankakee and the 6th Ward. When elected, I will serve with honesty, integrity, reliability, and accountability. And again, I will be an independent voice representing the people of our city. I am here to help build a better Kankakee, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I would like to ask each one of you guys to maybe get a little closer to the mic. And a question would be to Mrs. Adams, and we'll start with you, Mr. Breach.
Would you, do you firmly support the Riverwalk that's now being, going through a lot of steps here in Kankakee, the downtown Riverwalk?
Yes, I do. I do support the Riverwalk in the fact that it will bring economic change and development to our city. We have to engage in different communication and in conversations in order to see what's best fit for our community. The Riverwalk will bring tourists, it will bring tax dollars, it will also help beautify our area in which we live, you know, so I do support it 100%. So that's all.
Mrs. Johnson.
I support the Riverwalk. However, I feel like there's some things that we need to take care of, maybe some business that we need to take care of throughout the community first before investing those funds into the Riverwalk. I understand it will bring tourism to the area, but if we have high crime rates, folks aren't going to want to come down to the Riverwalk. If we can't guarantee their safety or they're not going to feel safe, they're not going to come. I know along with that Riverwalk, maybe some businesses will come in, but we may need to invest a little bit more into our downtown area. We have, and I know in my ward, we have some roads that aren't in the best shape. We have some sidewalks that need some work. So I think there's some other areas that we may need to look for to use those funds before we invest fully into the Riverwalk.
Okay. Mr. Barron.
The spot that's being looked at for the Riverwalk is unlike any spot that exists within this county. Having a shoreline that is up on the face of a river that is close to our urban core is an incredible asset. We have been talking for years about redeveloping that location. In the past 4 years, we are taking some real steps to be able to do that. The Riverfront Plan is ambitious. It's not something that's going to take place in the next 4 years. It's going to take place over the long haul. We need people to take steps now to put the things in place to make that happen. I am on the Riverfront Society. It's a newly formed nonprofit. I serve as on the executive committee. I'm the secretary. I've spent hundreds of hours volunteering, putting together a private foundation so that we can raise money from private entities, from corporations, from individuals to be able to cut the cost for taxpayers in order to realize this incredible attribute that we have. Part of doing that too is making sure that we are being mindful of costs, but if the community can raise $15,000 for a 15-minute fireworks show almost instantly, there's private money out there. And we just have to go get it so that we can save the money for the taxpayers while still being able to enjoy and utilize what is one of our greatest assets in the city of Kankakee.
All right, thank you. Before we go further, Mrs. Adams, would you have any rebuttal to Ms. Johnson's statement previously regarding the question?
Absolutely. In trying to invest in downtown, I believe that we need to invest in the 6th Ward there's 5 businesses in the 6th Ward. There's Domino's, there's Citgo, there's the River Street store, and there's a couple of mom and pop small stores. How many times have you been in any of those entities? and looking at, they're in the not greatest locations, and I know that during the last few years, there's been some lackluster approaches over here, especially to the River Street store. You know, there is a safety concern, safety issue, but we need to invest in our own neighborhood as well, and the River Walk will help us to encourage, you know, it will help us drive that business up, or the economic. I was just in the River Street store on Friday, and I see where, you know, the young man, he's been there for a long time, and it's steady growing, but we still have people in our community that use this, so we need to beautify that more so and bring more business.
Okay,
that way.
thank you. Ms. Johnson, you was alluding to public safety, so you have 30 seconds to further your explanation on what you regarding the question.
On the public safety aspect
Yes,
of it?
yes.
So my thought, I've been to the Riverwalk, like in Peoria. They have a very nice riverfront. I've been there for visiting family and for fireworks displays. It's very nice. But if folks are there going for a walk around, you know, along the shoreline, enjoying a concert, if the safety aspect is not there, I don't think that they will come. I feel very safe in the 6th ward, the 2nd ward. I have no problems walking any of those things. I don't know that, again, from what we hear from family and relatives outside of the area, in Bourbonnais and Bradley and Manteno, folks are somewhat scared to come down here. So I think we really need to get our public safety under control. We have the issue with the motorbikes and those types of things that scare people or people are concerned about. Just those things. And if it's not under control, or if there's not clear safety involved coming down to the Riverwalk, I don't know that people will come to it.
Okay, thank
Locals
you.
or out-of-town folks.
You have anything you want to add to that, Mr. Barron? You have 30 seconds.
Sure. The argument I would want to make there is we have crime now. We need to take steps to immediately address it, but to expect that crime is going to go away completely is totally outside the realm of possibility. A lot of people think that you can't work on economic development until you deal with public safety entirely. I think that's wrong. You've got to be able to do both at the same time. It's walking and chewing gum at the same time. We need to push the levers to make sure that we have plans to deal with public safety, active plans of communication, active, proactive strategies. But at the same time, we also have to be taking the steps to make the use of our best assets. The river is undoubtedly that. We have an opportunity right now to strike, and we should.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you have the question coming from Mr. Gather.
You're elected as an alderman. How can you make a difference in your community?
How will I make a difference in the community? I feel I will be an independent voice. I'm not, I may be running as a Democrat, but I can be a voice for anyone in our community. In the 6th ward, the 2nd ward, the 1st ward, if someone comes to me or if I see a problem, I can be that conduit to help solve that solution or to help solve that problem and find a solution. I think I can speak for others that maybe aren't able to speak for themselves, that aren't able to get the resources that they need. I can find the right channels to go through to help with that. I think.
Thank you. Mr. Barron.
Thank you for the question. The way that you articulated it was, how can you make a difference in the community? I don't like that phrase. I hear it often, but when you talk about making a difference, it means doing something totally different than what came before. And I don't think necessarily we need to always do that. I think sometimes we need to take what was the best of what came behind us and contribute. We're standing on the shoulders of many generations of people who have put their lives and their hearts into Kankakee, and they did some things right. But that doesn't mean that we can't take the best of the new ideas, things that have worked elsewhere, and incorporate them into Kankakee. I think that is a big part of what an alderman, and especially a new alderman, can bring new ideas to the table, supplement them with what's already going on. I think a lot of the conflict that you see on council now has to do with people guarding their projects personally. If it comes out of the mouths of one person, then another group's gonna not go for it. And I think that we need to put that away and be more about making contributions to our community than trying to make your personal difference in guarding it.
Thank you. Mrs. Adams.
Will you please say my name? I want you to practice
Mrs.
it.
Adams.
Yoquantis Adams.
I said Mrs. Adams.
I know, but I'm just saying for future references. Making a difference. In terms of making a difference it's very ambiguous. You know, you have to decide on what is right and what's wrong. I'm approachable. I'm ready to dig in and get the work done, whatever is necessary. People don't see what the political parties that you are in, they don't see that when they have issues, when they have concerns, when they need resources, when they have nothing, you know. So making a difference, I'm approachable. I'm opening the doorway for suggestions, solutions, resolutions. I don't like leaving things left unattended. I want to be able to close those loopholes when we have issues, concerns, especially the safety. The safety concerns is really a big thing for me. My children were raised in this community, and we've seen a lot of crimes being committed. But as now my grandchildren are starting to come up in this community, and I want to be able to let them have the opportunities, if not better, the opportunities that my children came up, you know, whatever. I look at it as we all are together, and we all need to work together regardless to better Kankakee.
Thank you. So it appears that we've been talking about public safety. So let's talk about the House Bill 163 that recently passed. And we're going to start with you, Mr. Barron, and we're going to go to each candidate. And we're going to ask about your goals and objectives. If elected, what type of programs or ideas that you would bring down to City Hall regarding public safety. Everyone is talking about body cams and how it would protect our law enforcement officers and the citizens that we advocate for. So we're going to start with you then.
My thought with respect to public safety, this is incredibly important to me in the role that I'm running for. The second ward has the highest incidence of shootings anywhere in the city. So this is something that whoever holds this spot needs to take this position very seriously and be able to respond immediately with plans of action and what we're going to do. My view is we need to have a short-term approach and a long-term approach. Short-term, right away, we've got to have a proactive strategy in place to deal with upticks as they occur. We need to bring back the Kankakee Police Department Facebook page because we need to have a direct line of communication between the department and the people to provide information about what they're doing to secure the situation. And third, we need to make sure that we put out an information campaign so that people know that they can report anonymously to our authorities without any fear of retribution. Those are short-term impacts. If we only look at the short term, we're going to be back here 4 years from now having the same conversations about an uptick in violence. The longer term is going to take a much more difficult look at our relationship between the community and the police. We can do that with body cams, which is part of the House bill that you mentioned. It is part of the new capital, the new bonding that the city just did. It pays for police cams, so we are taking those correct paths. For me, it's also putting in place more oversight, mechanisms of trust, like a civilian oversight board that will be able to strengthen the hands, because there is that relationship of trust that has been fostered over time through oversight, that will be able to allow our police officers to go in to do their jobs while having more trust with the community.
Thank you. Yoquantis Adams.
With respect to the House Bill 163, as far as the police body cams, I'm in support of having the police body cams to create more visibility. That it helps to promote both sides, you know, from the offender's view and from the officer's view. However, in light of recent events, at this time of having social media and cameras and everything, we don't necessarily see any justice when it comes to police officers or, you know, law enforcement having these cameras. There's a significant mistrust within our community, you know, where it has divided the police and it has divided the community. You know, we have a lackluster approach in trying to determine where do we start or to reduce these barriers. We need to be able to bridge the gap. And in bridging the gap, that means communication needs to go across the board. We need to be able to talk these things out and build that rapport back, because that's what's happening. You know, there's no trust, there's no rapport, there's no community. So we need to get back to the old saying of a village. It takes a village to raise a family. So my thing is, I do believe that we need to have body cams to hold them more accountable, as well as to give another sight of how things are transpiring. So.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Barron and Mrs. Adams as well. I think body cams do give a better line of sight, but they need to be turned on. The recordings need to be turned on. You need to hear them or see them from the beginning. I think it protects both sides, the police officers and the other person as well. I think that, you know, kind of borrowing from the United Way here, strong neighborhoods build strong communities. You know, a little bit of grassroots, I think we need to go back to. I certainly know it's not going to solve everything, but, you know, wave at your neighbors, introduce yourself, turn your porch lights on. Be aware of your surroundings, check in on each other. I know we lived in our home, our past home, for 9 years. We moved over the summer into a newer home. I went out and met my neighbors. Even in the time of COVID, we social distance, but at least you check in, you meet your neighbors, you know who's going to be on your block and what to be aware of. In our general area, you know, we used to have some bike police. I don't know if that's still the norm during the summer months or when it's not, you know, freezing outside. Bring back some bike policing. You know, the 6th Ward I feel extremely safe in. I know other wards do not, but, you know, just have folks out in the neighborhoods if we, you know, drive around a little bit more. Those types of things. I also think, you know, block captains kind of play into that. That was something that the block captain can also go out and meet the new neighbors, give them the sheets on who to call if there's questions with, you know, trash pickup and things like that. But it also gets you out there to meet your neighbors, and if a neighbor has a question, they know who they can also contact. Again, just turning things on like your porch lights at night. You know, calling if there's a light out on the street, if a street light needs, you know, a new bulb or something like that. Little things, I think, build up and help people feel safer and help with the public safety aspects. I know they're not going to, you know, help with the shootings or, you know, the little things will add up and help with the shootings. It may not necessarily solve everything, but again, I think a lot of things, little things add up into something bigger. So, thank you.
I'd just like to add, going back to Mrs. Adams' statement regarding building the bridges. In particular, I think you were possibly talking about between law enforcement, in particular communities of color. I'm pretty sure our secretary have each one of your email address, and I'd like to, on behalf of the county, of all law enforcement, I'd like to welcome each one of you all to participate on the Kankakee County response team, Mrs. Adams, which actually address the things that you said about building those bridges and about lack of trust between our citizens and law enforcement. So I'll make sure I can get that information to you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Smith, you have the question, and the question is to Mrs. Adams.
Could you explain to the voters the role, what's the job responsibilities of an alder person?
The alder person, can you hear me? Mm-hmm. The alder person is the person that one would contact if they were having issues with things of that nature within their neighborhood. You know, if it's infrastructure issues, be it sidewalks, any type of issues that they would have in their community that is a concern to them. The alderpersons would meet with the committee. They will then decide amongst the committee, you know, whatever it is that, to bring the issue forward. They would decide amongst the committees is if it can't be resolved at their level, then they bring it to the council floor. This is something new to me, and I'm ready to embark on this journey, but I also want to really dig in and to be that voice and that advocate for not only just my area, but my community, but for Kankakee as a whole. I'm looking forward to trying to learn nuances of the municipality code. You know, it was brought to me, it was more of an impact on me when I generated the parent parade. You know, we did the parade over the summer, and I seen all of the different channels that I had to go through, you know, to get it, to implement it. So I look forward to being that voice, that advocate, and showing my strengths.
Thank you. Mrs. Johnson?
Was the question what the role of an alderwoman is, or? Yep.
Yeah, what is the role of the alderperson?
Yep.
Yes. Responsibility.
The role of an alderperson, I think Mrs. Adams explained it well, is a conduit from the people in your community, be it the 6th Ward or wherever in the city, to help them get either the services that they need or help to answer their questions. If you know, if they have trees down or limbs that need to be picked up, get them in contact with the Public Works Department. If there's questions on trash removal or large pickup items, you know, get them in contact with the right area that would help with that. They also, you know, are a voice. If someone has a concern and they come to the alderperson or the alderwoman, they're the voice for the community. And if something needs to be done, you know, the resident needs to come to the alderperson so that they can help voice that and get the matters taken care of. I think they also are a representative of the city. You know, it's people from the outside also come into the city. If they have questions, they know that the city council or a particular alderperson can help answer those.
I think Ms. Adams, Ms. Johnson did a great job of explaining that. Not to cover ground again, we're the legislature of the city. We as a city council, we're supposed to provide, and you know, this is me being hopeful, but we're supposed to provide oversight. That's why I think it's important to provide an independent voice when you are serving as an alderman. We also serve as the closest representative of any government to the people. So when you are an alderman, you're going to get questions that have nothing to do with city government. They might have to do with the park district. It might have to do with the school board. It might have to do with the state representative. It might have to do with Congress. It might have to do with the president. You got to be ready to field every single one of those responsibly, and so that people feel that they are heard. You know, one thing that the city council and an alderman is not is the mayor. The people up here are not running for mayor. We are running to be one of 14 voices that are trying to come together to pass bills. In order to get anything done, the members of the city council have to work together. They have to be able to have communication with each other on a sustainable basis. That's one of the things that I do think that I bring to the table. I have working relationships with most of the existing aldermen that I've talked through different projects that I've been involved in the community, and I would hit the ground running on that, looking to provide and build coalitions among people. If you're looking to make change, in order to make real, lasting change, you have to build a consensus. And that's all that what city council is about, and something I think we can do.
Thank you. We're going to, Mrs. Johnson, we're going to take that particular question and regarding that responsibilities, duties and responsibility as an alderman person. So what do, not just the duties and responsibility, but the current climate of America, the social justice, equality, equity, inclusion, diversity. So how would you, if elected, would address that and what we're currently having as with the current administration of the alderman, what would you bring to address those items to improve that relationship across the city?
So hopefully on a national level, things will start smoothing out. What would I do to do that? I have strong communication skills, which you may not have just noticed that, but I feel like I have strong communication skills. I'm willing to, or I'm able to work with everybody on the council and the mayor and whomever is elected or whoever is continues to be on the council. I feel like our city, we're extremely diverse and we have a kaleidoscope of different folks in our city. I think that the city council and the representatives of the city need to be representative of that, of our different backgrounds and our ethnicities. So I think we just need to be open, communicate, fair, respect each other. I think respect is a big thing that we might be missing a little bit right now in some certain areas. So,
Mr. Barron.
A lot of thoughts come to mind with that question. I mean, it is probably one of the most pressing questions of our time. One is, I think we as a people, particularly white people, need to adopt a different view of what racism is. I think in many of our eyes, and I'm talking specifically about white people, when we think of racism, we think of somebody with the hood on. We think of somebody who is standing on the steps of the University of Alabama saying segregation forever. We need to look a little bit harder. We need to look a little bit more inside and have a real conversation with ourselves, with people that don't look like us. With that discussion as a basis to move forward, only once we have recognized and called out some of those issues can we actually start to move on equity and inclusion. And I think the way to do that is you build on shared goals. One thing that I'm very excited about is I'm a member of the Key City Community Development Corporation. We just received an $85,000 grant to work on what we're calling the Greenwood Initiative. And it's a project to try to connect 18 blocks of Greenwood that span racial diversity, land use diversity, all at once, making people who feel in Riverview connected to the people that live in Old Fair, to the people that live in the north side, to the people that live in Coachlight. Those types of projects that view our community together are one way, at least in the city of Kankakee, I think we'll be able to move forward.
Mrs. Adams.
And I want to piggyback off of what Dave said. It starts with respect. We have to respect each other's opinions and perspectives of things, Just because you don't agree with what this person is saying, does not mean that you have to be nasty and spew the hate and anger, We all have to be able to work cohesive together and build upon that, making trust, build upon trust, The attacks against people, we need to bring back humanity and humility, A lot of times we just kind of just push people aside and their opinion does not, or their ideas don't mesh well with ours. So it starts first with respecting each other and respecting different perspectives and being able to critically think to resolve whatever barriers that we are inhabited by. So that's how I feel that to bring us back to where we need to be.
Ms. Johnson, do you have anything to add?
I think that the folks on the panel here did a really good job. I think respect is a big factor that we're missing today or these days. Going back and forth, you just need to show respect to each other, and I think that would help a lot. We kind of miss that with social media. You think you can just say whatever you want to say, and there's no face to it. But once we get respect for each other and gain that, I think that comes a long way.
Okay.
Or goes a long way.
Thank you, Mr. Breach. And you have the question as to Ms. Yaquantes Adams.
This question's regard to the Fortitude Homeless Shelter. Why or why don't you support a downtown homeless shelter?
downtown homeless shelter would be, well, let me start over. Okay, so when they closed the Salvation Army, it left a lot of people homeless, transitional people that were just being released from prisons, and just people in general that have nowhere other place to go. Being in support and I have not developed or even changed my train of thinking about that. You have to take in a lot of consideration about people's backgrounds, and how would you attack, and I won't say attack, how would you go by or implement a homeless shelter being downtown when this is somewhere where people are coming, and it may drive down property taxes, it may drive down business because people don't want to engage in those, in homeless, or see homeless people in that area, so it may be a deterrent for businesses. But the biggest issue is we do need to find some kind of transitional housing or something for people that are less fortunate. That's how I stand on it. I'm not for and I'm not against. So I haven't made that decision yet.
Thank you. Mrs. Johnson?
I'm along the lines of Mrs. Adams. I feel like I don't know enough about the situation. My question would be, why can't we work, or why can't they work hand in hand with the Salvation Army? I felt like that building suited the purpose for these folks, and it seemed like it had beds and a kitchen and everything that was needed. I understand funding was cut from the government, so it closed its doors or stopped with the overnight stays, but my thought is, why can't Fortitude work with the Salvation Army and maybe get that back up and running, since it seems to me, and again, I don't know a lot about the situation, that it would already be suited with the beds and the kitchens and those types of things. So I certainly have more to learn on that, and that's just my question on that is, as well, is that why can't we use the Salvation Army? So.
Thank you. Mr. Barron?
If I'm fortunate enough to be elected, February 24th, the day after the election, I would plan to get to work on this issue. It's not an easy issue, and for anybody that says that it is, it's not. We have two competing moral imperatives here. One is to make sure that we shelter the homeless. The other is to revive and revitalize a community that has been kicked a number of different times. Those things are seeing a conflict come to the head with this situation about a shelter. I don't think that we've exhausted the options enough. I think that we need to do a little bit more research to see what is available, what exactly, not just Fortitude, but the other social service organizations in town need to provide a holistic spectrum of service for the homeless. Emergency shelters, transitional housing, job placement, and it goes on from there. I also want to be clear about, this is not only a Kankakee issue. For whatever reason, Kankakee has kind of taken it in the teeth on this issue. We're the only community that has in its municipal code even the allowance of a permanent shelter. Bourbonnais only allows for 1 day a week. Bradley doesn't provide for the same thing. But we have. Kankakee can, should, and will do its part to help out with this issue, but it can't be us alone.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gatlin, you have the question as to Mrs. Johnson.
Each and every one of you are running for alderman. What do you know about the duties and responsibilities of an alderman for the city of Kankakee?
So the duties and responsibility, in my understanding, again, we act as a conduit for our constituents, again, to help them as to what services are available, who to contact for the services, those types of things. Another duty is also a representative of the city, so kind of on the flip side, some people looking on the outside or coming in from the outside, to let them know who they can contact, who, to help them with services or those types of things. It also involves, our duties include, passing a budget. We have the urban and economic development committee. Each alderman, I believe, or alderwoman serves on 2 boards or 2 committees within the city council. So you attend those meetings, you have to vote on things. If they get out of committee, they come into the council. You work on ordinances and laws and things like that for the cities as well. So.
Mr. Barron.
I believe, we've talked a little bit about some of the role, the duties, and the responsibilities of the council. I'll talk about a few that I think I would want to bring, some of the duties and responsibilities that I would want to bring to the office. Ms. Adams and I were talking about law school and just essentially being a lawyer. As a lawyer, I do have a skill set that I think I bring to the table that will be helpful to serve those duties and responsibilities. At a recent city council meeting, there was a disagreement about which alderman has the right to ask for ordinances to be drafted. I would draft those ordinances myself as a basis for communication. I've done that before. I've been a municipal lawyer for a number of different municipalities, as big as Chicago, as small as Bonfield, as small as Papineau in rural Iroquois County. So I would do that as a role, as part of what I do as an alderman. I would also be involved in researching policies. I think that is another role that an alderman has, is to go out and find what is going on elsewhere. Things like flex zoning, which is an innovative land use policy that they're doing in South Bend, Indiana. Things like the Strong Neighborhood House that the United Way has put in the 2nd Ward. That comes from other places. We need, as aldermen, to go on these fact-finding missions ourselves to see what we can do to build up the city.
Thank you. Mrs. Adams.
Okay, and just to reiterate, we did speak on this before about the roles of alderperson. And as saying, to be an advocate, to be a representative of the city, and to be able to generate laws and within the municipality code, and also be the information agent. A lot of times that we speak to people that with concerns, they either want to just talk and air their grievances, or they really want some solid or tangible information to connect with, to mitigate the barriers that they have. The alderperson does a lot of connectivity. We're trying to make sure that whatever your issues are, maybe we can't resolve all of them, but I want to be able to be the one to further the information that we have. The information is not going to stop with me. If we're saying, hey, what's going on with our city? What's going on? I want to continue the information forward so that we can have a better understanding of how the city works and city government works. That's where.
Okay. Mrs. Johnson.
No, I agree. I think, again, that we're a conduit from our constituents to the council itself, and then back again, that, from folks on the outside coming into the city, be it, businesses, folks expanding, if someone has a question, in regards to, I don't know, the Eastgate project or the Hobby Avenue project, kind of being that person that they can come to with some questions. And if we don't know the answer, if I don't know the answer, I can certainly find out the answer and help folks along. So I think there's a big responsibility to both the citizens of our city and then on the flip from employers or businesses as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Smith. Ms. Smith, you have to Ms. Adams question.
Okay. With respect to each ward that you're running for, what are the 3 shortcomings in your particular wards, and how would you incorporate your residents in your ward to help with those shortcomings, if any?
Who is that aimed to? Each of us?
Yes, it's starting with you.
Okay. Some of our shortcomings in the 6th Ward, as much as I enjoy the 6th Ward and what it has to offer, I think our sidewalks and our roads, I'm hearing a lot when I'm out walking and talking to neighbors. We have not pothole issues, but we could use some road repairs. That's certainly, I know some of the funding hasn't been there the last few years, but that's something that I'm hearing that folks want to have looked into as well. Another issue is the abandoned houses. I just drove around and walking, sent over about 6 or 7 houses to look into today to see if they are abandoned or what's the case with them, because they're an eyesore. It's blight in our community. In home ownership, we would really, I feel like it's on the rise, but across the city, not just in the 6th Ward, home ownership, people would really like to see some of either those empty houses or houses maybe that are currently rental properties turned over to home ownership. There's pride in ownership, and I think that helps the community and makes it stronger.
Mr. Barron?
Glad I didn't have to go first on that one. I would say that in the 2nd Ward specifically, it is the number of shootings. I mentioned before the 2nd Ward has the highest incidence. I think that we have made a good step by investing in the ShotSpotter system. Now it remains to be seen what we can do with that data. We need to have proactive strategies that take into account that data to not just react to crime, but be prepared to move on it when it does happen initially. I think that we can do that a little more proactively with our nuisance ordinance too, taking a look at what homes are already on the way to being a nuisance property. Conducting an audit block by block to figure out where that is, so that if something bad happens, we can immediately work with the state's attorney's office to go after the nuisance properties. Additionally, I think the separation that has the 2nd Ward is really interesting. It exists on both sides of the river. It's the only ward in the city that does that, and I think sometimes that leads to some members of our ward on the South Bank and other portions of the ward that feel like they're left out. The key, I think, to that is empowering our neighborhood associations. We should do that with our funds. And if we do that, Alderman Mike Cobbs is a friend of mine, somebody I look up to. His power comes from being the president of a neighborhood association, not just being an alderman. So it is great to, and I would like to see that in South Bank, in Upper Riverview, Coach Light, really empower and embolden the neighborhood associations we have.
Mrs. Adams?
Okay, so for the 6th Ward, the shortcomings that I have seen are the disparities in the appearance. The further west that you go in the 6th Ward, you have lights, there's, the police are out there, it's more secure. I can go outside at 3 o'clock in the morning and get in my car and not feel like something is gonna happen to me. But when you go further east, in the 6th Ward, there's poor visibility. The streets are narrower. We've been having a lot of people have accidents because they can't see down the street because the parking on both sides. And like Ms. Johnson said, as far as home ownership, we have to get people to want to invest into becoming homeowners. We have a very diverse ward where we have a lot of renters and people that are short-term or temporary residents. So we want to see how can we get them to invest in where they're living at. If you're a landlord, you have to make sure that you're holding your residents or leases to a standard. Make sure that you are cleaning up around your area. Like I said, we have to know or have them buy in or invest in the communities. That's the only way that we're going to generate some change. I would like to see the 6th Ward in the 600 block, look a little more like the 6th Ward in the 900 block. I would like to see them bringing more of transition as far as, like I said, people buying into and beautification, because I know some people have potted plants on the corners and it just kind of stopped. I know the city is not doing that, but that was done by another resident. But we all need to be able to just, take ownership. We need to own, even if we're temporary, so that's my take on it.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you raised in your last comment regarding dilapidated homes and all that. So, Mr. Barron, let's talk about affordable housing. And as an alderman, when elected, how would you deal with addressing the lack of affordable housing and real estate development in the city?
One thought is, I wouldn't say that we really lack affordable housing. What we lack is quality affordable housing. And I think there are measures that are in place. There are tax incentives. There are federal and state programs that are in place that we really need to embrace. That has been something that I've tried to do since moving back, is to better understand those so that we can put them into place. The low-income housing tax credit is a system that will provide for 40% of a project as long as you provide for certain qualities and you make sure that the residents have 80% of the area income. Most of our residents have 80% of the area income. There is this negative perception that exists with affordable housing that does not need to be the case. I also believe that rehabs are going to be a key element to any strategy for neighborhood revitalization. Rehabs do not cost as much money as new construction. We can couple private investment with public dollars that exist in a template to make it as easy as possible, and then we move one house by one house, block by block, building up. Incrementalism is the way we do this. If you do incrementalism, you don't end up displacing anybody either, because everybody gets a piece of the rising tide.
So Mrs. Johnson started it, and you add a second layer. Mrs. Adams mentioned about what's needed, what affordable people can be homeowners. So Mrs. Adams, now we have that. When elected, how would you go about either in 6th Ward or the city, how would you make people more aware of the various programs that Mr. Barron just made regarding what the city have? So how would we make people more knowledgeable of what we already have to be homeowners?
So that's the thing, like I said, communication does not stop with me. I will be that voice, that advocate. I'm always pushing forward and researching for other resources that we have that are available that we don't necessarily have knowledge of because it stopped with someone else, whatever. I'm not about padding my pocket or my interest on what's best for a community. I want to be able to open the doorway and be the voice of those that don't know where else to turn. I have had some communication with Kankakee, the city of Kankakee, in regards to the housing project and what is available as far as knowing how to go about purchasing a house, what finances is, and even trying to figure out all the different dynamics and what goes hand in hand.
Okay.
I was a young homeowner. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, Ms. Johnson, so we got the programs, we got how we can probably make people aware. Then, so now you used the word dilapidated and abandoned homes. So how are we going to pull all this together to make people more aware of homeowners, ownership? How are we going to make them aware of programs that exist and make Kankakee the successful city that we all want?
Yeah, I think that's a big problem that we run into is people aren't aware of the programs that we have. So I think the Economic and Development Committee or Community Board helps. It's new this year. It just started, and I believe there's roughly 20 members spread throughout the city, and they're educating us. It's like I said, it's new this year. They're educating us to help get out the word to our wards or to our neighbors, to our friends, to help advertise word of mouth, grassroots efforts. I think it's also listed on the city website. So it is out there, but I think word of mouth is really, one of our best ways to talk up the city and what it has to offer. For example, we have the $2,500 down payment assistant program with Midland State Bank. We don't have to use Midland. It was $150,000, excuse me, over 3 years. We're in our last year of that, and we have roughly $42,000 left. And a few, I want to say 5 or 6 individuals going through that program now to get that down payment assistance. And then talking with other aldermen and women, I understand that in addition to that $2,500 through Midland State Bank, if you work at Riverside Hospital and I think the school district, they may match that or help with some support as well, or help with some down payment assistance as well. So getting that word out is a challenge, but I think word of mouth helps, social media helps, the city's website helps to get the word out there, and that's also a job of an alderwoman as well.
Okay, thank you. So again, we started off with the riverfront, and we ended up with housing and how we can get people to move back into the city. So, Mrs. Adams, we talked about riverfront, we talked about the housing, how we're going to make people aware. So now, how are we going to have people to feel safe to move back within the city to make this city successful?
To make the city successful.
Success regarding bringing people back.
To bring them, to bring them back.
Yes.
Well, we already know that there are plenty, and I won't say a plethora of jobs. There are a lot of jobs in the city. We have state jobs that encompass more so than any other job, whatever. So I think that it's all about the buy-in. When you're having these conversations and communicating with people about what their wants or what their goals are, we have to be able to, like I said, it goes back to respect. It goes back to respect and listening to what the issues may be. So when you are trying to bring them back to Kankakee, we present what jobs are available. We present what housing is available, what programs are available for us. We ask them, what criteria do they need to fit into this housing program? What do they need to be able to obtain or take this class? So when we're talking about bringing people back into the community, we need to be able to show them, what are some of the ways to take care of your family,
Right. So the reason I posed that particular question because all three of you guys throughout the night talked about, we started with talking about the duties and responsibility of an alderman person. So we just talked about that it's more than just dealing with the city government, but it's also, you talked about humanity, how we're going to deal with people, the safety of people. So what we just talked about, that to be an alderman is more than dealing with just government. It's dealing with the people in the city, caring for them, making them aware of what already is offered for them. So that means the alderman has a lot to do with their various hat that's on their responsibility. So it's just not about the government, but it's also how we're going to help our fellow man and make them aware of the various programs. Mr. Breach, we got to end up with Mrs. Johnson with a closing, but we're going to start with you to question, then you have a question, we're going to go with Mr. Barron. We're going to start.
Just any question?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Do you support the downtown TIF district that's being formulated?
I do. I am a member of the Kankakee Development Corporation, and our board did vote to provide some initial funding to assist with the study that would create that TIF. I do think that it would be it was money well spent for KDC. I think that the time and energy spent to create the 23-year TIF district for downtown would also be worth it. We have a number of developers who are taking active interest in downtown Kankakee right now. And a big reason for that, I believe, is because downtown Kankakee offers a potential mode of living that nowhere else in the county has, that other small cities have taken advantage of, and that's a small, urban downtown with walkability, livability, and that's going to take some funding to do. That's going to take a little bit of tax incentive to get those first developers to put their time in, their own money in, to bring us to that next level. Our city is about to go under 25,000. We've got to be really serious about that. We need to think about ways to bring people in, and it might be different than the way we did it before.
So, Mrs. Adams?
As far as TIFs go, I am not as knowledgeable as I need to be or want to be, but I will ensure that I research to see what is best for our community.
Okay. Mrs. Johnson?
I am not as knowledgeable as I'd like to be, but from what I do understand, I am in agreement with the TIF district. I think it shows that the city is kind of willing to put up money to bring the businesses in and to help develop and to get where we need to be so that people want to stay here. So I am in agreement with the new downtown district and some of the others as well. It shows what we have to offer and that we are looking for new businesses and expanding businesses as well. So I think it's a good thing for us right now.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to move into closing. I just want to add, though, you mentioned that the 25,000, and I think that's what most Kankakeeans really need to realize regarding home rule. That's the key, and that's why it's so important that we have people to move back within our city limits, that we can increase our population. Because once we lose home rule, we're in a little vicarious position. So we're going to do the 3 minutes closing, starting with you, Mr. Barron.
Well, I'm going to use the first minute to talk a little bit about home rule and why it's important that we do maintain that population level. Home rule, essentially, what it means is that the city is able to take actions without getting specific authorization from the state. If you fall as a non-home rule, then you're only able to do exactly what the state allows you to do in its statutes. That means that we would lose the ability to take on certain economic development tools, like the land bank that we've been working really hard to put together, and it's going to be a really good tool for us. I don't know about you, but I would rather us here locally be able to make decisions about our community than handing it over to the state of Illinois. That is one reason why I think we need to make sure that we are maintaining home rule levels. With respect to my closing, I do want to just go over real quick the main tenets of my platform. Again, you can go to barronforkankakee.com to read about them in more detail, but those are strong neighborhoods, safe streets, and a united city. Strong neighborhoods that do take time to work on rehabbing a number of houses, bringing in investment, coupling private and public dollars so that we can bring things together over time. Safe streets that is focused on proactive strategies to deal with crime. If we're going through an uptick, we need to hear right away from police officers directly as to how it's going to be dealt with. That will not only give people a sense of security so that they will go to the Riverwalk, it will also give more of a trust relationship that exists over time between the people and the community. And finally, United City. That's probably going to be the toughest of all. We are a divided city now, but I think if we have leaders that approach problems humbly and willing to recognize that there are other right answers to many different problems, then we will be able to achieve that. And we as Kankakee, an incredibly diverse city that is also a small city, we have proximity to each other. The issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity, the solutions that are going to solve those national problems are going to come from communities like ours, small, diverse communities. I have not mentioned this, and I've tried not to talk about it during the campaign because I want to run on my own experience and my own ideas. But I am the son of somebody who served in the role of alderman for 32 years. And I bring that up only to say that I know what this job looks like at home. I know that we had a good conversation about policies, but the most important aspect of this job comes at a different time. It comes at the dinner table when you're called away to answer the phone. It comes when you have to go to your neighbor's house to see a leaky roof. It comes when you go to the committee meeting after committee meeting after committee meeting. That's the role. That's the job. Coming before you and answering questions like this to a panel, that's the job too. And I'm willing to do that. That's one that I'm not just running for. I'm running toward that job because I think it is an important one, and I'm very excited to do it. I do hope that you will give me the privilege by voting for me on February 23rd or early so that we can work together and build up Kankakee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Adams?
As an alderperson or future alderperson, I just want to say I have a passion for investing in my community. I have a passion for speaking and being an advocate for those that don't have a voice. I'm here to facilitate that for those that may not know how to go about business as usual. Working in the social services field, I worked in Department of Corrections for 13 years and then went to Department of Human Services. And I've been on both sides of the fence where I've seen, people come home and have issues with reentry, or where we've seen families divided because of, for whatever instance or the circumstances that they are dealt. In providing that, I have a very diverse background. I can finagle or fraternize with the best of them, and I am one that does not, I don't care about what color, or, I'm not looking at the color lines, So I'm there to be an advocate, a voice for a reason, and I would absolutely be grateful for your support and your vote on February 23rd. I would like to be that advocate. I would like to be the voice of reasoning, and also trying to progress this city forward that we live in. I love my city. I've born and raised, and I have developed a sense of pride because I do see things changing for the better economically. I was just in talks not too long ago of maybe with them building another Amazon facility south of Kankakee, right before Iroquois County, because we know that we have a lot of transportation issue, and people can't get to Moni or the other places of employment that are outsourced, Elwood. So we were looking into trying to develop talks or develop a relationship with other entities to bring commerce to Kankakee. So I would hope to be one in that, to help facilitate that and to bring about change.
Thank you. Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you. In closing, when I'm the Alderwoman for the 6th District, I lead with honesty and integrity, reliability, and accountability. Bring more transparency to our local government. Help our citizens to be a conduit for the services that they need, both the citizens of Kankakee and bringing folks into Kankakee. We do have some issues that we are working on, and I think we can build a better Kankakee with getting the right folks in line and getting a city council that works together instead of against each other. Public safety is certainly a concern, and I think a lot of those things start with the grassroots. Again, getting out and meeting your neighbors, turning on your porch light, waving at folks as they drive by. The little things I think add up and matter. I really enjoy living in Kankakee with the diversity. And as a parent, I want my child to grow up here and share the love that we have for Kankakee as well. Again, I think we need to kind of learn to respect each other again. That seems to be something that we've been missing through the last year and even before, and with social media and things. Getting out there, be respectful, helps to build our neighborhoods. And again, strong neighborhoods help to build a strong community. So I think we're on the right path, but I think we can certainly do more and can help to further Kankakee and to build it into a stronger community. So,
Thank you. To Mr. Steve Bertrand of the library, we'd like to thank him and his staff. Mr. Breach of the Daily Journal, Mr. Gathen, Ms. Smith, and the Political Action Committee of the NACP, Mr. Dave Barron, Ms. Shaquantis Adams, Ms. Kelly Johnson. Mrs. Kelly Johnson, I want to just thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Wishing everyone luck on Tuesday, the 23rd of February. Have a great evening.
Thank you.